Today I'm with
Oliver Lau,
and we'll be speaking about hybrids
and I'll be speaking about irons.
and the differences between the two, whether one should suit you over the other. One thing's for sure is that a hybrid gives you a lot of confidence at address.
And I think with an iron, it could do the same if it's in the right hands.
So depending on your personal preference, what suits you could come down to, first of all, your shot shape, secondly, your trajectory, and third, your ability with the club. Speaking from the hybrid perspective, the one thing a hybrid gives me is not only confidence, but distance and a soft landing.
And I think what an iron gives me is workability, able to shape the ball in a certain way, and it also gives me good feedback. Because of the smaller head, I'm able to better understand exactly where I hit that ball on the face.
I can't disagree with you on that one, but there's a reason for this. The sweet spot on a hybrid is significantly larger because of the back center of gravity. When you've got this much of the club head behind the ball, you're giving yourself a much larger area to make effective contact. I'm not saying you can hit off the toe and carry at your maximum distance, but the chances are you're not going to be too far offline and you're still going to get a decent shot out of it.
And I 100% agree with you there. With a hybrid, you do get more forgiveness because of the size of the head and the makeup of it, whether it be center of gravity and all the technology that I won't really get into. The great thing about an iron, though, is like I said, it offers the ability to work the ball. So if you want to hit a shot, let's say, around a tree or a particular obstacle, if for whatever reason that shot dictates that, coming into the green with, let's say, more of a fade or more of a draw is advantageous, I would say with an iron, you're able to do that a little bit better because of the shape and because of the feedback you're able to get from the club. So I would say that is the advantage of an iron over a hybrid in this particular scenario.
Things change and become a little different from a poor lie. If you land in the rough, say from a tee shot, you've pushed it out in the rough, that additional force basically generated by such a large club head will actually help you get through the rough and carry that ball up not only out but high and quick from that kind of position. I don't think you're going to get that with an iron.
Granted, you might not get that with an iron, but we all know sometimes coming out of the rough it is very hard to dictate spin. And I think with a hybrid, naturally your spin is going to drop off a bit. With an iron, even though you're coming out of a bad lie, you may be able to get more spin on the ball, therefore able to land it a little bit softer or get a little bit more backspin, which might allow you to hold that green, where a hybrid might run through the green. So there is advantages to playing either one. With the iron, I think the spin characteristic will definitely be an advantage out of a bad lie.
Can't disagree with you there. I think actually if you went to a simulator and tested a, let's say, 5 hybrid versus a 5 iron and looked at only spin rate, you're going to find that there's a lot less spin generated with a hybrid than there is with an iron. Less spin, though, generally means more distance. And that's something I've noticed personally. I have a very hybrid-centric set. I go from 7 iron to 6 hybrid, and my gap is about 16, 17 yards between the two. It's the largest gap I have in my set because of the additional distance that's generated by the head of a hybrid.
I find that what you're saying is 100% true, and I think it also depends and is dictated by your playing style. Like Kobe said, he has a very hybrid-centric, is that what you called it?
Hybrid-centric set.
I'm more of a traditional iron set, and I find that my gapping is really nice and tight. I find that I'm able to generate a lot of spin and land the ball pretty softly, even with the longer irons, such as a 5. So I find that depending on your style of play, it really depends on what you're going to be playing. For me, an iron is great because I like to get kind of close to the flag and go at it, knowing that it's going to land softly. I think Kobe, because he does have a lot of hybrids in his bag, tends to play more to the front and hope that it'll roll or know that it's going to roll out a bit and get him to that flag in a different way.
That's true. Actually, I do play to that strength, right? I play to the fact that if I play to the front of a green, there's a good chance, if I'm approaching a green with a hybrid, that it's going to roll at least toward the center or toward where that pin is, and I can judge it by that. Because of that, provided, and most of the courses we play do not have bunker issues in front of the green. I mean, most of the courses we play, because again, we're beginners, They generally have bunker protection on the left, bunker protection on the right. If I aim for the front of the green, I kind of take those things out of play.
And yeah, that's very true. Depending on your style of play, one or the other is going to suit you better. I find for me, irons are a little bit better because I'm able to control my flight. I naturally hit a pretty high ball, and I find that with an iron, whether I set it back in my stance or I change kind of the angle of attack, I'm able to keep that ball low. So in certain situations where there may be a low-hanging branch because I've hit it into the rough, or you know, it's a very windy day, there's a bank that maybe I want to hit it into and let it bump up type of thing. I think with an iron, I'm better able to dictate that height on the ball, as where a hybrid, it kind of balloons up on me a bit, but that's again because I have a natural high ball flight.
Okay, that's true. I've played with him numerous times. He does have a very natural high ball flight, but outside of that, what he's saying is true in that the larger the head, picture your driver, for instance. How far could you legitimately tilt your driver and still make good contact? It's not that far, right? You have very little rotation of the club head at impact. Now what this does do is create a generally consistent impact, right? I mean, if you're not a fantastic golfer, I'm not a fantastic golfer, I'm a beginner, I've said this numerous times, you're going to make pretty consistent contact because of how limited you are as far as how you can adjust that club face at impact. With an iron, you can hit it from any kind of angle, and it's why there's so much workability. But at the same time, it increases your margin for error. So depending on how great a golfer you are, if you're a high handicapper like myself, you're probably better off utilizing a hybrid.
And I find you're finding more golfers, even at the pro level, start switching their longer irons out for hybrids because of that factor, which is the forgiveness factor. You know, I think even just recently, I don't know if it was earlier this season, don't quote me on this, I think Fred Couples switched his 3-iron to a 3 hybrid because of that. But I find with those longer clubs, there might be more of an advantage to a hybrid, simply because of the fact that at that point, I think you're just going for distance as opposed to workability with those longer clubs. But with a lot of sets nowadays, you're seeing 4, you're seeing 5 hybrids work their way in. I'm still the type of guy where I would prefer a 5-iron, even a 4-iron, because of the workability factor. And again, because I've been playing a little bit longer than Kobe. I'm not saying I'm a fantastic golfer either. I still have my moments.
He's
but
passable.
I still think that my 5 or 4-iron is more of a choice I would rather have in my bag, simply because I can control the flight. I think I can control the spin a little bit better, and it just offers more flexibility in the shot making ability.
I think, honestly, speaking from that perspective, talking about how, you know, PGA players, LPGA players are adding more hybrids to their bag, and it is because they're using them primarily as a distance club
Par 5,
to
second shot.
set themselves up for a decent position to attack the green. With us, because we play shorter courses to begin with, it's not like we're playing, you know, a 7,000-yard course, right? For us, for the most part, our, you know, 4, 5, quite often we're using that to attack the green. So in that situation, I understand you want to kind of stick with your irons because you've got to make those shots to land in a particularly small area. Once we start getting into larger courses, probably a hybrid at that point is going to benefit you, myself, more. Because we're not aiming at a small target, we're just trying to advance the ball.
Again, I do have hybrids in my bag, so I'm not saying that hybrids are not a valuable tool in anyone's set. I think it really does depend on your style of play and what you're looking for in your bag. I think Kobe will agree with this. I'm a little bit more of an aggressive player out there, so I tend to want a club that I can work and I can kind of dictate the spin and shot shape a bit. Again, I don't shape the ball like Bubba, but starting to put some shape on it, and I find with an iron it's a little bit easier. But again, that suits my style of play, as where I think on Kobe's side, the hybrid suits his style of play because he's really just looking to get the ball in a general direction. He kind of knows his distances. The hybrids do the job for him. I'm trying to keep that gapping really tight. I'm trying to get some workability in there. So I think there's advantages to both. It really depends on your style of play.
Exactly. The only time I shape a ball like Bubba is when I hit it poorly. And I end up 50 yards left of the green, right? I basically want to hit a nice straight ball. I want a predictable flight and a predictable landing. And that's it. And when you are a beginner like me, probably a hybrid is going to do that for you.
And again, when you're a beginner like me, but you play in a certain way, I think it all depends on how your eye sees the course and how you tend to map out holes. And I think for me, having the flexibility of an iron as opposed to the forgiveness of a hybrid in certain scenarios is what I would prefer.
If you're unsure about which one to go with, I'd say pop into your local store. Anything that's got a simulator, grab an iron, grab a hybrid, preferably from the same brands, right? So
Yep.
you can compare like for like and just see what works for you. A lot of it's going to come down to ball flight.
Yep.
A lot is going to come down to spin. And whatever becomes more predictable for you, just go with that.